Well, thanks for joining us, despite Schleicher speaking somewhere else, Bokova speaking in half an hour, and very interesting debate on robots in the other chamber I would have listened to. But this is way more interesting, and you will notice in 30 minutes. I'm Damien Lanfrey, Chief Innovation Officer of the Ministry of Education, appointed by this person sitting in the front row here, who's, I'm very honored she's coming to listen to me. I want to talk about something very simple today. I mean, they asked me to be a bit provocative, or at least to try and provoke some thinking. And I've been hearing a lot about, I work in EdTech. I've been hearing a lot about EdTech and educational innovation, and about the fact that, education technology can do lots of good things, can do efficiency, can allow us to collect better data, can allow us to personalize, can improve performance and effectiveness of teaching outcomes and learning outcomes. And there's a lot of good things that technology does, but my idea is that we have, too much of a single-minded interpretation of innovation and technology. Like, as Schleicher was saying yesterday, there are many ways in which you can interpret technology. Technology can be interpreted also to be something completely different. My argument is that we need a warmer interpretation of innovation and a more social interpretation of technology. And I think that this is the thing that we need the most right now. So I'm trying to convince you of that, and I will make some example from a policy we launched 1.5 years ago, which is the National Plan for Digital Education in Italy, a 1.5 billion euros policy we launched to innovate the education system. Normally, in another policy context, this would be called an EdTech policy. This would be, for example, in UK, this would be run by the Office for Educational Technology. In Italy, we gave a different flavor to this policy. We want to design innovation in education system that is more inclusive, that is more accessible, that is more connected. So I'm trying to sell you this idea. Just very briefly, this is the way we organize, in which we organize our policy, around 9 areas. It's a comprehensive policy that has 3 main areas: tools and learning environments, skills and contents, teacher training, human capital, and sustaining innovation. Action for sustaining and monitoring innovation. It includes 35 actions, and as I said, it's a 1.5 billion euros policy, but it's not just about technology. It's about innovating the school system, innovating the didactics, innovating organization, but also doing something different that I'm trying to explain. I want to sell you the case for warm innovations. I want to sell a different idea of innovation, and I want to explain that this idea can be way more impactful than many performance ideas that have been, talked about during this conference. And I'll just give you 5 very practical examples of the 35 actions we've launched inside the plan. It's a big work. 5 actions I'm talking to you about. The first one is what we called creativity atelier. We took the Reggio Emilia approach. I don't know if you know the Reggio Emilia approach in education. All about practice, senses, making things with your hands. And we were inspired by this thing here, which I'm sure you know. It's the Exploratorium in San Francisco. It's the idea of tinkering. It's the practice of accessible technology, of making things with your hands, of making things simple. And we translated this into a big investment to sustain a vision. We want creativity in every single primary school in Italy, so we're investing in a tinkering space, a tinkering and maker space in every single primary school in the country. For us, this is a very strong vision. It was a very strong investment, something we are firmly believing on. The idea is to create cozy, easily accessible spaces. The great thing of tinkering technology is that it's simple technology, that it's very accessible, that it reduces the friction of learning. It makes students access much, much quicker learnings. Sometimes we tend to see technologies that are a bit scary, that tend to be very much completely integrated, while we much prefer this type of technology, especially at primary school education. The great thing of this investment is that schools are understanding this kind of investments. It's an accessible way for really delivering technology. And the interesting part is that when you start mixing this investment with innovation outside of schools, for example, the maker community, the maker movement, it's starting to generate transformative effects. The maker movements of Rome and of the Lazio regional administration in Italy, it's starting to transform peripheries of cities thanks to our investment in Creative Atelier by introducing Fab Labs elements in schools. So they are investing in the weaker area of the country, and this is working because this is very inclusive. This is an easy technology that everybody can relate to, and so they are including the community in this investment. So right now, the poorest or the most troubled schools in the most troubled areas in the center of Italy, thanks to this investment, are approaching school and community together. So that's the first thing. I mean, I've been speaking a lot with these people here, and 2 years ago, they were just, like all makers. They were tinkering in their garage, tinkering in their space, in their hubs, but they weren't really impacting in the community. What they've been telling me after 2 years of investment is that by liaising with schools and by designing this practice and by bringing this practice inside schools, they've been having a very transformative effect inside their local community. The second example is what we call animatori digitali, digital ambassadors. We decided to nominate one teacher in every school, in each of the 8,500 schools in Italy, to become, let's say, the project leader for our national plan for digital education. But more than that, we wanted to legitimize innovation. We wanted to make innovation something that was felt by everybody as very important. The first thing they did was they asked us to appoint 4 other people which we called innovation teams, and together with these innovation teams, they started to create innovation in every school. Well, the powerful things of digital ambassadors is that we gave digital ambassadors 3 tasks, those 3. Organize internal training, develop and share innovative practices in every school, and especially engage communities. And this third effect that's been the most powerful. One regional administration decided to invest in our digital ambassadors and decided to bring the digital ambassadors, so let's say 300, 400 teachers in the region, and to bring them at the very center, at the very heart of their regional administration digital agenda policy, the whole digital agenda policy, because they didn't have anything similar in any other context. So right now, they're organizing workshops with our digital ambassadors, and they're designing the whole digital agenda policy of the region, because they see the centrality of schools in their administration. And to me, that's another powerful example of the fact that the way we designed our policy was able to influence the way in which we could interact with the rest of the community. The third idea is the idea of the curriculum as community. Normally, we had this problem when we launched the National Plan for Digital Education. The problem is, how do we sustain this type of curriculum that doesn't exist at school? The curriculum on which we call Digital Literacy Common Core. So how do we bring these contents inside schools? You don't have many books on that. You don't have much learning on that. It's very complicated to find educational resources that are codified, especially for Italian schools, but in general for schools on these subjects, because practice is not codified, because it's very complex because publishers are not ready. So, on the other hand, normally this is how the school curriculum looks like. It's a set of guidelines, right? It's a set of, in Italy, that's quite traditional, but it's a set of guidelines. It's called Indicazioni Nazionali, and it tells pretty much what you need to achieve by the end of the year in terms of curriculum. Obviously, we keep doing this because we need to have proper guidelines, we need to have formal guidelines, but it wasn't working. So the example I'm trying to give you is what we think instead is a real curriculum for the 21st century, and it's a real application of innovation for the curriculum. The project is called A Scuola di Open Coesione, and it basically involves classrooms through open data of public spending in their environment. It's actually EU funds, public spending on EU funds. And classroom needs to engage with open data, use open data in creative ways, and tell a story of civic monitoring to their community. The result is spectacular in the sense that they are starting to impact in their communities. They engage the mayors in telling them their story. Sometimes they even solve problems. Actually, the winner of last year's competition reopened a youth center in Locri, in a very, very, very poor place in Italy, reopened a youth center that was blocked by a mix of bureaucracy and, let's say, potential corruption. And instead, they studied the subject, they engaged with the subject, they got the data, they told the story, they engage with the community because the fifth step of this curriculum is engaging the community. So why I'm giving you the example? You're getting this. This is a curriculum that, by definition, engages classes with their community. And by definition, it's obviously about innovation. We're still talking about open data. We're still talking about digital literacy. We're still talking about a number of skills. But what's great here is that now we have a constellation of roughly 300 schools and 100 organizations, civil society organizations that are working together. And guess what? Well, obviously, classes do very different projects. That's also a beautiful thing of innovation that's free. You have a technical class, a vocational school that will deliver a 3D model of local cultural heritage, and then they will design a touristic strategy for the local administration. And then you're going to have schools like the Locri School, which will reopen a youth center because they feel that work is the problem down there. So this type of curriculum was awarded at the OGP Awards Global as a top 10, actually ranked 4th. But, the beautiful thing of this is that we decided to invest in this kind of model. We decided to put 5 million euros for delivering 25 projects like that, for designing 25 formats, and then scaling up the year after those 25 formats in the whole curriculum. Because this is the kind of idea that students need to get engaged, but also teachers need to become real facilitator of knowledge that they will never be able to know from time zero. So again, this is another interpretation of innovation that, yes, it is innovation. It is pedagogical innovation. It is didactic innovation. It uses technology in many ways, but it's innovative in the sense that it impacts the community in a very innovative way. This is a similar example. We wanted to design an entrepreneurship curriculum. Entrepreneurship is a key skill of our century. In my interpretation, is the key competence of the key competences, because it's really about learning to learn and learning to solve problems. So, we could have easily designed an entrepreneurship curriculum just by releasing a set of guidelines and giving those guidelines to every school. Instead, what we did was designing a phase, a process that resembled more what entrepreneurship looks like in the real life. So, an entry-level curriculum for entrepreneurship in every school, but then 50 competitions in every territory in Italy that engage 25,000 students selected from the first round, and then an acceleration phase for the top 1,000 students so that they engage with entrepreneurship in the way that they would engage with the Olympics of maths, which I'm sure in your education system exist, or the Olympics of informatics. Obviously, why this is an ecosystemic design? Because you can't do this without all the partners of the innovation ecosystem in Italy. So we called everyone, all of the partners. They obviously love this because, the market loves this phase as well. They feel that that's an increase of talent. And so we designed a school curriculum as an innovation ecosystem. And I think, personally, beyond the subject, that's another very good way of doing, because You don't design curriculum just by thinking about the pedagogical aspects of the curriculum. You design by thinking about the kind of innovation ecosystem that they're going to generate in society and be way beyond schools. The last example, again, it's similar in a sense. It's about innovation hubs. There was this great idea from the school in Rome who received a Google grant of $500,000. So immediately it clicked something on us. They had this idea of reshaping school spaces in a creative way. They call it Innovation Gym. And, and they decided to invest in very advanced pedagogical practice, very advanced training practice, together with partners like Google, and with whom they would teach normally in the morning and train needs or people without jobs in the afternoon. So we felt that was a very powerful idea because, again, it was designed, it embedded a design that was already engaging community and engaging the external world and engaging the results of the external world that you need to do. Very plainly, we use those spaces also for training people without jobs, but by doing this, we innovate also school practice. So that's an innovation hub idea, and we decided to multiply this idea nationally, and so we invested 58 million euros for 70 hubs in Italy, 750,000 euros, roughly pounds, let's say, per investment. And obviously, the projects that have been emerging out of that have been quite spectacular. In Gaeta, which is definitely a place where you don't normally have many things happening. Gaeta is a beautiful place by the seaside, just up Naples. A private company donated a boat to the school. The university donated a hydrogen engine and naval technology and marine technology. And now they're using this innovation hub to connect islands and nearby places, because the point of innovation hubs is to connect more schools at the same time, more contexts at the same time. And now they are using this boat will be an innovation hub, and they will go around the coast, and they will teach kids, on one hand, marine technology, on one hand, navigation, and on the other hand, biology, and on the other hand, physics. But same example, but in the north of Italy, where obviously there's much more economy going. Near Venice, a school was able to gather 100 companies, all the companies in the Veneto region, which is a very rich region in Italy, working on energy. And they decided to invest inside the school to build a new building that will become the Casa dell'Energia, the House of Energy, where every single company of the region will invest on the latest technology to make of the school the innovation hub of the region. And what students will do with that? Well, they will learn with the latest technology, but they will also use to design solutions for citizens around the Veneto region. So everybody who wants to go to the Casa dell'Energia and study a new solution on, let's say, renewable energy for the home or sustainable building, they will go there, and students, vocational training students, will design the solution for the citizenship. Again, this is the whole circle. It's schools and companies working together, the internal world and external world of schools working together, but also ontologically schools becoming central to the nearby environment, not only having a relationship with the environment, but becoming central to the environment. That's all. I mean, that's what I wanted to convey. Technology is not just about efficiency, it's not just about performance result, it's not just about precision, it's not just about numbers. It's about these things here as well. It's about access and inclusion, it's about creativity, it's about reducing friction. Here, really, the maker movement and the tinkering movement are crucial, in my opinion. They reduce the friction of learning. They make learning seem not only playful, but it's easier technology. Programming an Arduino board, it's quite easy. Programming a Raspberry Pi board is quite easy, and so they reduce the friction in learning. And then it's about creating connections, spurring contamination. It's about reinterpreting communities. It's about creating communities out of a curriculum, for example. Like I said before, a curriculum can become not only a series of outcomes of a classroom, but an aggregative movement of a country. Because the 300 schools that next year will be 1,000 of A Scuola di Open Coesione, which have monitored 1 billion euros of investments, of public investment through open data, right now, they are a community and a movement themselves in the country. And in the end, it's about generating social impact. Thank you. So, did I convince you to stay here? Questions?
Very interesting case, and you referred to the north and the south of Italy. Because of different social contexts, did you find any specific features in terms of difficulties or different approaches to and reactions to this proposal? Because I completely agree with you that we need to push the idea that innovation is warm. It is social, but I mean, societies then influence also innovation. So, which is your experience?
I think that the Laboratori Territoriali, the innovation hubs case is a good case because it needs to apply to very different contexts. I'm not asking to every school in Italy to have a partnership with 100 companies because they don't have companies around there. But the investment needs to be designed in a way that it can generate any kind of innovation. It can generate also other kinds of innovation that are not normally possible. So in the north of Italy, you will always have companies. You will always have strong partnership. In the south of Italy, like in Gaeta, you can have new partnership originating out of the funding and more creativity in generating innovation. Obviously, what we notice from data is that, and I'm sure every education system is the same, when in a territory, when in a community, there is very little in terms of, I don't know, university energy, innovation, economic investments, maybe even awareness, political awareness. Obviously, if none of these conditions happen, it's a bit complicated to generate innovation. Yet, it's still a case for working, because Rome is a good example. I mean, Rome, you know Rome for many good reasons. Rome is a fantastic place, but Rome is actually, in terms of policy numbers, is one of the worst places in Italy. Schools in Rome are terrible. Please don't say that. Schools in Rome are definitely not in the top, let's say, 60% of the country. And that's why Google invested in the grant in that place, because they knew that there were so many needs. And what happened is that if innovation wasn't coming outside naturally, spontaneously, in that case, Google generated an investment, and Google generated something new. The innovation gym, the Palestra dell'Innovazione, which is the example of the space in Rome, which we use an example to model the innovation hub approach, well, that inspired us that, in that case, it was an external investment. It was an investment external to the system, but that's also good, because if you don't have any other solution, if in Sicily you have nothing, well, maybe I'm trying to convince Cisco to come there, or another partner to come there to try to spur the kind of innovation that doesn't originate naturally. I mean, the idea is that we need to use every leverage for spurring innovation, and these kind of processes need to be non-linear. They need to be able to engage in different ways, different actors, because every context is different. I'm sure that you feel the same. In Italy, there's a big divide not only between north and south of the country, but even within the same region right now, there are widening divides between, let's say, the center and the periphery. This is typical. This is the global trend. So we need to think very, differently, and we need to be able to be open to many interpretations of technology. That's why I'm saying this. That's the point of this talk. I mean, we need to be able to be open to many interpretations of innovation. Yeah.
I have a question regarding the 80 innovation hub schools you built. So you said that during the mornings, the students would be learning, and then during the afternoons, adults from the community would come in and learn. What was the funding model you used for that, and what was the teachers you used for the afternoon teaching?
Okay, good question. The funding model is public-private partnership. So we put 750,000 euros as a public grant. From the projects, we have an average of 50% of co-funding. Sorry, let's say 100% of co-funding, 50% of the project. So another 750,000 euros were put by the private sector. But I'm sure we can do better than this, because that was just a first grant, and we realized after we launched the grant that it was working. That you know, after we started communicating effectively the policy, lots of other companies were approaching, and they were saying to us, well, we missed the first grant. When are you doing another one? Because we feel that this works. And yet, even despite very little communication, there was already a 50% co-funding. The teaching model is, the project allows, well, what we're funding is the starting grant plus a small grant for sustaining the thing for 3 years, okay? And then we ask them to build a sustainability plan for 10 years. And many of them do have, because actually that's what the private sector gave. For example, foundations gave a grant for, let's say, in-kind resources for 10 years, which sometimes are very important, like, you know, people, experts, and a space, let's say, for 10 years. So it's obviously different models, but that's let's say, the thing that works normally. Teachers can be, sometimes are even school teachers who teach in the afternoon, and sometimes are experts who teach in the afternoon. But the good thing is, the Rome example is a good example, the Rome example. In the Rome example, the pedagogical practice is designed inside the school. So 70% of what happens is school-led, anyway. 70, 80% of what happens is school-led. It's spaces inside the school, it becomes normal pedagogy of the school, and then eventually it becomes something that is translated also to, you know, young 22-year-olders from the outskirts of Rome who doesn't have a job. But that's a good question, because it's very difficult.
Good afternoon.
Thanks.
My name is Victor Wanga from Kenya. I was just wondering whether the kind of innovation, the hub that you're talking about, can be a project that can be viable for the third world. I'm trying to connect it with the new laptop projects that was introduced by our current government, targeting class 1 pupils.
Yeah.
Probably in a classroom where, in a school where there might be no even enough security for it. When we are talking of school, is it targeting universities, or which are the areas that?
I'm talking about all school, primary and secondary school, so not tertiary education. I'm not talking about university right now. I'm talking about primary and secondary school.
So I'm trying to connect the innovation that you expect probably in a primary school or a secondary school, because the scenario that we have in Africa is that most of the research are done at the universities. And so we've put universities as the centers for research and innovation, and not these other lower levels.
I think that that's a big question. But I think one answer is there. When I was saying about the way cheap technology is making things more accessible, I wasn't trying to say something trivial. I think that's very true. I mean, it makes a difference even in, let's say, non-third world countries, because now you need to think about every education system in the world has got scarce resources anyway, depending on the context. They always have less resources than what they need. So what's happening right now, for example, with the Arduino board or the Raspberry Pi board, which are lowering the cost, well, that's what we need to continue to do, because I think that more accessible technology will give you as well way more options. So I think that the one laptop per child model, which obviously I don't know so well, like as well as this, but the kind of model that engages cheap technology and simple practice is not just trivial, it's really about accessibility. So I think that if I were in international aid, I would invest in this. I would invest in funding global challenge projects on lowering the cost of technology to make technology more accessible, and that's so possible. Because already I met the head of Raspberry Pi in London, and already the board is, what, £4, £3? And I'm sure we can lower again. I'm sure we can go lower, or I'm sure we can subsidize that in a way that it goes lower. So if I were in international aid, I would invest in that. If I were in an African country, I would try to leverage that investment. I would try to attract that. I would try to show that I want to bring good innovation in schools. I want to bring good practice in schools. It's good for Italy as well, if you think about it. We need to act on 8,500 schools and 42,000 school buildings. It's hell of a lot. So, every time we give money to a school, we need to, ponder very well what we're giving. Even if we have good funding, we need to ponder very well what we're giving. So, in the past, schools used to invest in very expensive technology. Like those interactive whiteboards that cost something like 20,000 euros or 15,000 pounds. This is nonsense. I mean, EdTech, and especially innovation education, needs to go towards lowering the cost. So I don't have an answer for everything, but definitely I would use that approach to attract more energy towards those countries. Thanks. Well, we can keep talking. Thank you.